Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. Over the past 7 years, we've understood what matters most to you, the entrepreneur. And in year 8, we're taking head-on 2 of your most pressing concerns, that of funding and mentoring. I'm Sunanda Jayasheelan. On tonight's show, to the Influencer Conversations. First up is with OYO Real Estate. On the other side of a break is Metro Cash and Carry. Now, the story of OYO has fascinated us here in the media thanks to its very young founder and the kind of exponential growth that the company has seen over a very short span of time. In today's conversation, I caught up with the head of OYO Real Estate to understand, amongst other things, the acquisition of Amsterdam-based leisure group for $415 million, what it means for the company when it comes to that space, as well as the future plans, including assisted living. Take a listen to a slice of that exclusive conversation. Rohit, good having you here in studios, talking really about how things are changing when we're talking about the co-living and the co-working spaces. And yours is a perfect example, really, of how working in today's India is changing dramatically. So let's talk about the fact that you head the real estate vertical at OYO, which looks at co-working and co-living. What is co-living? I do know, and I do have a basic understanding of co-working, but co-living, how that market is changing and what you want our viewers to know.
Thank you for having me here. The way I think about it is that this is an opportunity for me to influence 24 hours of someone's life, some working professional's life, because 8 to 12 hours you're in office and rest of the time you're at home. So I touch both parts of somebody's life through this process. So just to give you a simple sense of what co-living is, we can really complicate it, but it's about 2 or 3 things.
Sure.
For the consumer, who's typically our target segment right now is the young professional or student, it is about getting to know about buildings where they can stay even if they're not from the same city, right? Through a digital platform. A, B, really making it affordable for them, because once you're in your first job or second job, affordability is a key factor. Third is making it totally painless for them in terms of giving them the Wi-Fi, the housekeeping, the laundry facilities, and as the community grows, we are starting to build much more on that.
Sure.
So that's as basic as that in terms of what the product is. Overlay that with a deep sense of community feeling, because you go and you have 30, 40 people who are like you, or you over time you get a sense of bonding, community with them. They become your new friends in sometimes a city which is not that familiar.
Sure.
Right? We are witnessing multiple micro trends emerge there, because as you put a product out there and you see consumption, you are sometimes surprised by, I didn't think it will get used in this way.
Sure.
Young couples who don't want to manage an apartment.
Sure.
So there are multiple use cases. This is a $50 billion market in India.
Fascinating. So where is that growth going to come from? Because, even as you're saying multiple use cases, you're targeting young professionals and students. So is there a market for you outside maybe the top, say, 20 cities of the country?
So the top 20 cities is...
it's still a sizable market. Yeah, but then where do you go from there?
Like we are top, if you take out of the top 20 cities, you're talking like a continent, right?
Sure.
And just the top 9, 10 cities are 50% of urban population. These are very, very massive numbers. And just for context, in terms of young professionals and students, approximately you take any number between 40 to 50 million people migrate every year. And the organized segment today in the space is barely 1 lakh beds, which is nothing.
Sure.
So just in the terms of there are 2 trends which are driving this. One is the sheer preference which the new generation has for lack of ownership of anything, right? Preference for convenience. And the second thing is, so that's the trend which is moving in this direction. Second is the sheer number of migrant population and urbanization, people moving jobs to different cities continues to be a very, very strong trend.
Okay.
So my view is that this is not a demand constrained market, and it is actually going to be created through the right supply and partnering with asset owners.
Sure.
Because it also, I think one big benefit for the economy is that this really unlocks the residential real estate, which is a conundrum in India, because at some level renting is tough, and the other side you have like there's literally millions of apartments and buildings lying vacant.
Sure.
Because of structural imbalances.
Sure.
So this is something which really addresses both sides.
I want to talk also about the fact that you may have just launched in this space, but as far as OYO is concerned, you're a market leader, right? So
we are India's number one co-living player.
You are India's number one co-living, but this is such a small market. So my question really is, for someone who's watching this interview, a young entrepreneur watching this interview, saying, fantastic growth opportunities, what are the insights you want to give them through this interview?
I think there are just 2 or 3 things. First of all, we are not just India's largest. We'll probably, if you rank us, we'll be in the top 10 in the world just for co-living.
Sure.
Right? But I think we're just getting started. As we say, we are just day one for us.
Sure.
Right? I have just 2-3 messages. One is observation is very powerful. Observe a consumer problem. Right? It is always in front of us. And then go back and create a product which really addresses the problem head on. And it has to address all pain points.
Sure.
Accessibility, affordability. It almost is, and look at high demand markets.
Okay.
So rental is not going to go away anywhere. It is how you structurally transform rental into this opportunity. That's one.
Okay.
So affordability is very key. And so keep it affordable, address the product consumer need in totality. Right? The second message I have is that each of these require immense capability building. So it's not just about the consumer side, it's also about the infra side. So getting the right team
Sure.
Very early on. These are 2 messages which I think are simple, but I've always believed in them. And as we progress, I think we find immense value in making sure we're addressing a large consumer need. And we're building a great team,
Sure.
which is able to scale this to a world-beating franchise.
Great. I very briefly also want to talk about the acquisition that you've made of Atleisure. What can you tell our viewers about that?
It's a fantastic acquisition. It's one of the largest vacation rental companies, right? It allows us access into, so as a big trend, vacation homes are emerging as a preferred choice for consumers globally, right?
Okay.
And this company has a wide presence. It now, because of leisure, we are now in 80 countries, and we've got a great management team. We see this as a vehicle to really build a very, very large vacation homes business. The company is right now based out of Amsterdam. I was there at the, we had a sort of launch dinner event where we met, the leadership teams met. And I think the sense of the DNA match, the excitement they have about partnering with us, how excited we are about having them as on board. I think you should watch that space. There's something very magical emerging there.
You're not just learning, you're also teaching. I understand you're very passionately involved when it comes to mentoring small businesses, entrepreneurs, teaching, mentoring, hand-holding, and also investing, I understand.
That's right.
Why is that important for you?
For a very selfish reason.
Okay.
Right? I think teaching is the best way to learn.
Okay.
And I've invested in about 5-6 startups. To me, it's every time I am able to take time out and meet somebody with a bright new idea. They may believe that they are benefiting from my experience and what I'm saying, but very implicitly, it is my way of staying connected with the way the world is changing, because honestly, the best ideas
Sure.
come out of almost everywhere. So to me, it's a personal learning vehicle more than a teaching vehicle.
Okay. My last question, I understand you're looking at assisted living communities. You are right now, or you're live present in Bengaluru, Noida, Gurgaon, Pune. Expansion plans, what next? What can you leave us with?
So the OYO Life, which is the co-living business, is now actually in 9 cities.
Okay.
We are in the 4 cities you
Sure.
mentioned, plus Hyderabad, Mumbai, Kolkata. We launched Delhi, so it's expanding. Chennai,
Okay.
it's expanding every month. We will be in 15 plus cities by the end of the year. Our present plan is to stay focused on the co-living segment and extend it to student housing, right? The assisted living, I know there's a news which came, see, long-term rental is an opportunity which is there. No immediate plans of getting into senior living at this point in time.
Okay.
But at some point, maybe.
Okay, fair enough. So while that perhaps is, that was something that we were picking up, I do want to talk to you about Innovate, and that's something exciting on your plate at the moment?
Yeah. So look, co-working for us is a contiguous opportunity, and we believe it's a massive opportunity. I think there is a big market emerging for affordable workspaces, right? And affordable, high-quality workspaces. So Innovate, we acquired Innovate some time back, and Ritesh Malik and entire team is with us. They work. We are partners, and the entire team has come on board on OYO. Plus, we have added a lot more management strength there, apart from Innovate. So we are well on course to becoming one of India's most dominant players in a category that we want to play in, which is the affordable workspaces. 70-80% of India actually needs affordability as a big driver in every segment. I think the only thing is I'll add with that is India is also highly aspirational. So it's not just affordability; it's high quality, and you make it affordable.
Sure. Wish you all the very best. Not that you need it, but wish you all the best, and thanks for coming down to our studio.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
It's a pleasure.
Let's slip into a short break on that note. On the other side, Metro Cash and Carry in focus tonight. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight our second The Influencer conversation is with Metro Cash and Carry. My conversation tonight with Metro Cash and Carry is to understand how, from revolutionizing the way the B2B retail market is concerned, they're now looking at changing the way Kirana stores operate, particularly how they're using technology and digitization when it comes to their businesses, with the launch of an app called the Digital Shop. I caught up with the MD and CEO of the company to understand why they're so excited by the space, what their plans are, what some of the future initiatives are looking like in the country. Take a listen. Thanks for taking the time. So I want to kick today's interview off by quoting back to you something that you have said previously when it comes to doing business here in India, saying that if you want to be successful, you need to focus on three things: emerging needs, unmet needs, and unarticulated needs of the consumer. So my question to you really is that, what are some of the unmet and unarticulated needs perhaps of the Indian consumer right now?
So I'll start by saying that Metro is not just focused on the end consumer.
Sure.
We are focused on the business customers. And within the business customers, we focus on three segments. The Kiranas, which are your ubiquitous mom and pop grocery stores. There are about 12 million of them in the country. Horeca, which is hotel, restaurants, and caterers. And third is what we call SEOs, services, companies, and offices. Our focus in India has been on the Kiranas.
Sure.
If I look at the Kiranas, the first big need that they have is that currently they are dealing with more than 200 suppliers. So they have to deal with each and every FMCG company. They also carry a lot of staples, rice, pulses, lentils, oils, spices. For that, they have to go to the wholesale market. And in the wholesale market, there is no one-stop shop for all these commodities. So there are guys specializing only in rice. There is somebody specializing only in oil. Even for oil, they'll have to probably go to 3-4 different wholesalers. So they eventually end up dealing with more than 200 odd suppliers. So that is a big unmet need. So as a Metro wholesale cash and carry player, we offer everything to them under one roof.
Okay.
The second big challenge that they face is that the pricing in the wholesale market, or even as far as distributors are concerned, is not very transparent.
Sure.
So today, if you go to the wholesale market, they'll quote one price to you. You go tomorrow, the price could change. Some other person goes to the wholesale market, they probably will quote a different price.
Sure.
So at Metro, we make sure that we offer them the best possible prices. India is a very value-conscious market, especially when it comes to the Kirana store owners. If you look at their income or gross margin, they don't operate with more than 12 to 15% gross margin. So a 2 or 3% price differential can be huge. It can add 20 to 30% to their bottom line.
Sure.
So we at Metro make sure that our prices are being continuously benchmarked with all the leading wholesalers. the FMCG distributors, and the other organized.
And transparent as well.
And it's transparent. So
Sure.
when you come into a metro store, the rail cards, or the price rail cards are very visible. So you know exactly what you're paying.
Okay, great. You were talking about, the work that you're really doing with Kirana stores here in India, and I just want to quote some data. I understand the food and grocery market in India right now is about $350 billion, of which at least the expectation is that by 2020, 90% of them will be Kirana stores. Right now, about 12 million Kirana stores. My question to you is, where is that opportunity really? The way you see it, what is that biggest opportunity that you think perhaps through this interview you would want to tell our viewers that, this is what you should be looking at?
That's a very good question. So I completely agree with you that currently Kiranas are 90% of the total food and grocery market in India. We have a very strong conviction that they are not going anywhere. Even if e-commerce becomes big or modern retail becomes big, the share of pie that the Kirana stores will enjoy in India will not be less than 80 or 85%. So they will continue to be very relevant even in the future. The big opportunity is for them to modernize and digitalize their business, which is where we are working with them. When I say modernization and digitalization, one element is they need to adapt themselves to the changing consumer trends and needs.
Okay.
For instance, we find that many of them currently don't keep organic products. And that's a big consumer need. Okay. There are people in India who want to have pesticide-free products, pesticide-free staples. There are people who like to have frozen products. Many of the Kirana stores don't carry a frozen range. So we work with our supplier partners to offer them a freezer for free and offer them some of the frozen products that they can keep. For example, ice cream in summer can simply add to their sales. Similarly, there are a lot of people who buy frozen peas and frozen vegetables. McCain products have become very popular. So these are things that we are telling them they need to add to their assortment to continue to be relevant. The second thing that we believe that they need to do is to offer a much better shopping experience to their customers.
Okay.
Because typically, if you go to a Kirana store, you will send your servant or somebody and they will go with a shopping list and they will come back with exactly the articles which are there on the shopping list. We want them to remodel their stores and convert them into modern independent supermarkets.
Okay, you call yourself a complete solutions provider. At least that's what you say you want to be to your Kirana stores. Let me flip it around and talk about the biggest challenges, perhaps, the way you see it, sitting where you are in the retail industry, in the retail ecosystem really right now, whether it's Kirana stores, whether it's larger stores, and what perhaps is going to fix that?
See, there is actually a myth that Kirana stores in India will eventually go the way they have gone in the other parts of the world. I frankly believe that is not going to happen, and I'll share with you some very compelling data to suggest that why that's not going to happen. In India, Kirana stores do a great job in the sense the proximity to the customers that they have, nobody else has it. You place an order with Kirana, they can fulfill that order in about 30 minutes. They don't charge for delivery. The cost to serve is also very low. The operating cost of a Kirana store is less than 5%. Nobody else can come close to that. Plus, they carry the local assortment which the households in the neighborhood will ask for, which is, again, difficult to find sometimes in modern retail stores. What they need is, they need to be told how they need to modernize because I think on cost front, they are the masters of running low-cost operations.
Sure.
So that's what we have done, and I shared with you some example of how we are helping them modernize. And I want to share with you some data. 3-4 years ago, the Kirana segment in India was growing at about 6 to 8%. And the modern retail was growing in double digits. I'm talking about same-store sales growth. If you look at the Kiranas that are part of our ecosystem and the business that we do with them, we are finding that their growth has gone up to 8 to 10%. Even for us, the Kirana segment has grown at about 14% amidst all the gloom and doom that you hear about slowdown in the Indian economy.
We were talking about change in mindset. I want to talk now about change as far as strategy is concerned. When you launched in India and your flagship store, which is there in Bangalore, is of a scale and size that perhaps you've now over the next couple of years have sort of had a sort of a rethink in terms of what should be the size. That is one. I understand also that you are a B2B player, but somewhere along the line you were looking at other business verticals as well, but have decided that this perhaps is not working. We want to go back to be a pure play B2B player. What was that change in strategy like for you? And is that something that is perhaps you think working best for you only, or do you think that is necessarily something that works in the Indian market and therefore you want small businesses to look perhaps at that?
In fact, our global strategy has also gone through a shift.
Okay.
About a few years ago, we were a 100 billion euro conglomerate. We had a retail business called Real in many parts of Europe. We had chain of departmental stores. We had a chain of electronic stores. So over a period of time, all these businesses have either been divested or spun off into separate companies. So Metro globally is now a pure cash and carry player. And we also do something called food service delivery. In Europe, HoReCa is a big part of our business. For example, in a country like France, HoReCa is probably 70-75% of our business. In India, a lot of our business comes from the trader for reasons that I mentioned earlier. And if I look at the data, like our financial year is October 1 till September 30th. If I share with you some of the data, like Kirana segment for us is growing at 15-16%, which is unheard of. You know, when everybody is writing virtually the obituary for the traditional trade in India, we are seeing that if they make these changes that we talked about earlier, they can grow much faster. So now we want in India also to be a pure B2B player. And as we said, we are the champions of independent business. Within the independent businesses, the opportunity is huge because there are 12 million Kirana stores. There are about 13 to 14 million hotel, restaurants, and small caterers in the country. I'm talking about ones which have some kind of a formal license. And there are probably another 30-35 million other SMEs and small shopkeepers. So total size of small independent businesses or total count is about 60 million. That's a big number. So we believe they will continue to stay very relevant. And the B2B opportunity, therefore, is very huge. Even within that, you know, we don't want to go after all the three segments at one shot. So we first focus on the Kiranas. At the same time, we are, you know, strengthening our footprint for the HoReCa sector. And finally, we will get into, we also play in the SEO professional segment, the large office and institutional segment.
You're talking about Digital India, for instance. I want to talk about another program of the government, which is Skill India. End the conversation on that by looking at the big picture when it comes to skilling. I do know that you run some of your own programs when it comes to training your own staff. But from an industry point of view, do you think enough is being done to ensure that you know, talent-heavy and manpower-heavy industries like yours are getting the right manpower?
In fact, that's a very good point because the attrition rate is quite high in this sector. If somebody offers people 30-40% higher salary, they'll shift. So certainly, you know, there is all the industry players, not just us, have to make sure that we offer a great career path to people. And the good thing about retail is you don't need a fancy degree to be successful in retail. You know, we have according to me, one of the best jobs in India is to run a store for Metro because you're dealing with 400, 500 people. You're running complete P&L. You're dealing with business customers who are very savvy customers. They know pricing to the second decimal point. So it's a great job to have. But we need to train more people to do that job effectively. So there's a big opportunity there to run an academy to train these traditional stores to run their stores more efficiently and even to convert into modern omni-channel small shops, supermarkets.
And thank you then very much for your time and for coming down to our studio here.
For inviting me. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Really out of time on this episode. Our contact details up on your screens in just a second to let us know what you thought of both these interviews as well as any feedback you may have for us. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.